Warning, the show you're about to see is going to involve me and maybe some guests. My opinions are of my own, my guests' opinion of their own. Please, if you're watching, do not, I repeat, do not harass anybody or any group that is discussed. This show is for some laughs, for some educational purposes, and just to enjoy a good time. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please message me or comment down below. Now, let the show begin.
Do you have a name for the podcast?
I do have a name for the podcast. It's called the Donut Earth Podcast. Because the Earth is not
Donut Earth podcast.
the Earth.
Is that why you have that image?
Yeah, the Earth is not a donut or not a ball, and it is not. I repeat, it is not flat. It is the shape of a donut.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I guess I should introduce myself as well. I am MasterFeja. Dorian J and I are both comrades on USpot Gaming on YouTube. Check us out if you want to. But I am joining him on his show, so I will let him take the lead on this one.
All right. Well, this is actually something I find very interesting. I know it's one of your favorite Resident Evil games. It's actually my third favorite Resident Evil game. It is Biohazard 3. Rise of Nemesis.
Dark fate of the machines of the Sorcerer's Goblet.
Well, I'm actually really excited about this because I remember you and I actually sitting down, was it last year or the year before, to actually beat Resident Evil 3.
I think it would have been, not to date this video, I think it would have been late 2017, early 2018 when we got the digital download of it on, what was it, like PS3, PS4?
Yeah,
And we ripped through it. Like, we beat it in a night, but it was brutal, man. By the end of the night, I was, like, seeing double and stuff. It was crazy.
yeah, because it came on your PS3 copy of, was it Resident Evil 6 North American Collector's Edition, whatever it's called?
Yes. Which is weird, though, because, like, I think, Resident Evil 6 came out in, like, 2015, 2016, like, a while ago, but it didn't actually redeem those digital download anthology collection codes for, like, a while.
But one thing I find funny about this is this was actually, I think it was planned as a leak because it was actually leaked on the PSN store. These screenshots right here, or these images and everything. So it was leaked by Sony themselves.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of been a pretty long history of video game and cinema, like, big air quotes here, leaks, where they do it to promote the video to try to get more investors. It's not necessarily for the fans. I mean, like, it generates interest.
Yeah.
But then you'll see investors going like, oh, wow, like Resident Evil 2, the remake, was phenomenal. They've just released a big air quotes leak of Resident Evil 3. The fans are all going crazy. Let's pump money into Capcom so they can make this game, right? Actually, if I can go on a little bit of a tangent here, one of the best examples of recent history of that happening in film was actually the Deadpool movie. They were making a pilot for it, right? So there's no guaranteed funds. They hadn't cleared it. I think Fox owned it back then. I think it's actually part of Marvel now.
It is part of Marvel now, yeah.
Yeah. But Ryan Reynolds, being a huge comic book fan and a huge fan of Deadpool, big air quotes here, leaked their, like, little CG trailer or whatever for it, back before there was any characters or anything in it. I think it was all animated. And then everybody just lost their bananas on it. And then, of course, all the execs at Fox and all the potential investors are like, yo, this might actually have a chance. Poured money into it, they made it, and it was a smash hit. So I can definitely see the guys from Capcom and specifically from the RE3 remake dev team doing this very intentionally.
I'm a little concerned, man, because last year Resident Evil 2 just came out. Like, are they going to rush this, do you think? Or do you think this is kind of like, oh, it's like Final Fantasy VII. It's coming. We're going to show you this stuff, but we're not going to say when.
I think we're not going to be seeing the game until, and this is, I think, the very earliest, the end of 2020. Like, maybe they'll release it as a pre-Christmas thing.
Yeah.
When did they release Resident Evil 2? The remake? Do you want to just pull that up real quick? Do a quick Google search or something?
No problem.
Because I can't. Did it come out in? No. Did it come out in November last year? I think. I can't remember, but it came out. It came out, I think, near the end of the year, if I remember correctly.
January 25th, 2019.
Okay, so it came out at the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was post Christmas, so maybe they released it earlier in Japan just to kind of get like the consumerism of Christmas. Though Christmas isn't as huge for buying presents in Japan as it is in North America.
Yeah.
But I can definitely because I think they had a really huge like sales figure in North America versus Japan. So I think maybe next time they'll release it pre Christmas or do the same thing they did with the last remake. But I don't think we're going to see it in under a year. I think we're going to see it either end of 2020 or 2021. Now, the reason why I think that a year is a reasonable time for them to do this is because you have to remember, if you remember back the original Resident Evil 3 and the original Resident Evil 2,
Yeah.
they do actually overlap quite a bit, right? So they'll be able to use a lot of the same, they'll be able to use the same graphics engine for sure, and the same lighting engine, the one that they use for RE7. And I think they'll be able to use a lot of the same assets as well, right? They'll reuse a lot of the same zombies, at least for the beginning of the game, and then they're probably going to look a little bit more gross near the end.
Well, they kind of hinted
And
at Resident Evil 3 in Resident Evil 2, because when you're running around in the police station, you can see the parts where Nemesis burst through when he was chasing Jill. Like those giant
really,
holes. You can see the giant holes in the wall already there.
okay, cool.
Yeah. So that was like a big, like for fans, it was an Easter egg, but I think it was kind of like this Easter egg. Like, yes, we might do this if we can get enough people to actually buy the game, because there's no microtransactions as far as I believe, right? Or
There were like first day perks or like the what were they called? Like I guess they're equivalent of the collector's edition when you bought the game. And
yeah,
that was actually one of the things that kind of irritated me, but it's reasonable in the current climate of microtransactions and stuff. Where the original game, and this of course is in Canadian dollars, the original game, which is the one that I bought, and I think I got the last copy in our city, which was super lucky. Well, and this was on the first release. Of course, they
yeah,
did a second printing like 2 or 3 months later, but the original version of the game just came with everything and no perks. That's the one that I got. The collector's edition of it, I don't think it actually came with anything physically special. Maybe like a metal case, if I remember correctly. But what it did come with was the pistol that Leon uses in Resident Evil 4. I think it was like a special samurai edge or something, right? And then Claire came with a special shotgun or something, and then they came with special outfits. Like you got the all black Raccoon Police Department outfit for Leon, and you got like some sort of cowboy outfit for Claire. So
all right. I
it
have
came with some stuff, but it was all cosmetic, so it wasn't like important. It didn't affect the game per se.
Yeah, I have the information right here for Resident Evil 2. The pre-order came with Samurai Edge, Chris's
Yep.
model, and Samurai Edge Jill model. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay, so it didn't come with a shotgun. It was another pistol. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's also the deluxe DLC pack and stuff. So if you bought the deluxe version, you also got the deluxe weapon Samurai Edge Albert Wesker's model, and then you got the whole classic. You got the costumes for everybody else. And I gotta say, I wish it was more affordable for the actual collector's edition for two.
What was the price tag on that one in Canadian dollars, if you don't mind me asking?
240.
Holy hell. Okay, yeah. I see I remember I remember feelings more than actual memories. I remember being angry about something when this first came out,
Yeah.
but the game itself, the game was so magnifique, so great. I just completely forgot about it because I love this game. Okay, now let's get back to talking about Resident Evil 3, the remake, though.
Yeah.
My big question is, and we'll get into the details of the actual of like spoiler poster or whatever potential cover art later, but I think more importantly is, do you think they're going to reconstruct the narrative kind of in the same way that they reconstructed RE2? Because that was a big contention at the beginning. There was kind of two major camps. There was the Puritans that wanted to have the game essentially just be a graphical upgrade with a new lighting engine and new enemies and all that stuff, but have the exact same plot.
It would not have worked. No.
Well, I think it would have worked. It just would have been boring, right? Because
Well,
you've got those speedrunners that can do the game in like 2 hours or something crazy, and they've memorized everything about it, right?
well, the thing is too, they remade the history when they remade Resident Evil 1.
Yeah,
They
they didn't change all that much, though. I feel like in Resident Evil 1, they added a bunch of stuff. They didn't really change the course of things.
because every time they seem to remake the games, like Resident Evil 2 added a whole bunch of stuff. Resident Evil 2 remake added a whole bunch. Resident Evil 1 remake added a whole bunch, and then the series when they made 3, they didn't really know what they're going to do for anything else from there. Like
Yeah,
they left it open, and then they made Resident Evil 0, and that just jumbled some things.
yeah.
Because you got like what was it? It was Claire in Resident Evil 0, right? Or who am I thinking of?
You are thinking of the absolute cutest cutie pie 3.14 of the whole Resident Evil franchise. You're thinking of Rebecca Chambers, my guy.
Oh man, because
My absolute Resident Evil waifu.
how did she go from Mansion A to Mansion B, man? It's just like you've played 0, it ends there, and then it has all these extra different little plot holes now for like Resident Evil 2 and 3 to
Yes.
remake
It does
or
make
fill up.
sense, though. It does make sense, and I'm not going to give away our future plans for some video game recordings, but if you remember back when we played the original Resident Evil 0, and of course the remake of Resident Evil 1, those games, just like Resident Evil 2 and 3, do overlap, right?
Yep.
So Rebecca gets there by going through all those like underground tunnels that connect the Spencer Mansion to the Umbrella research facility where Marcus was at, and the leeches and stuff from RE0. So they do connect, but I see where you're coming from when you say that if you had Resident Evil 0 and they never remade Resident Evil 1, that wouldn't make any sense at all. Like it doesn't make sense from a map standpoint, from a narrative standpoint. So there were necessary changes, and I'm almost curious if the creation of Resident Evil 0 and then its graphical upgrade was the catalyst for creating a remake of Resident Evil 1. I can't remember the order of the release dates. I think maybe RE1 remake predates 0, but you can look that up if you want to. I don't really. I'm not that much about semantics, but. Right. Okay. So there was the two camps. The one camp for the RE2 make that wanted the game exactly the same but making it look better, and then the one that was actually spurred on by the initial comments from the creators of RE2 make, which they were saying that like it's gonna have the same feeling as Resident Evil 2, but it's gonna be updated so that a lot more things make sense and has more of a flow of gameplay.
Yep.
Right. And you know what? After playing the game and being surprised in so many cool ways, I think that the second camp was right. That they needed to make an updated story to kind of mesh better with the places we know that these characters eventually end up and all these things. Like, I think my favorite thing about Leon from the remake of 2 versus Leon from the original is that Leon in the original was like a bit of a buffoon. Like he was very easily, yeah, right. He's
Yeah.
kind of like a little town bumpkin, and he gets cheated by this secret super spy Ada Wong. But then anytime he did anything, he was like a super spy, super sleuth, right? Like he did all these things that some like local low beat cop shouldn't be able to do, but then he acts like an idiot, right?
Yep.
Whereas in this one, you still kind of get that naivete. Like he's still like, yeah, man, this is my first time in a big city. I'm gonna be the best cop ever. But at the same time, you get that there's like a good level of competence behind everything he does. You get the feeling that he comes from a small town, but the place he comes from, he was the freaking best. You know?
And it wasn't just this welcome to the police force, newbie. Like, oh no, you got zombies. What's happening?
Yeah. So I'm curious. Do you think they're going to keep the story more or less the same, or do you with additions, of course? Like, do you think the story is going to be the same in the RE3 make, and they're just going to make it longer and more detailed, or do you think they're going to take it in a new direction and then also make it longer?
I hope they flush it out, because Resident Evil 3, I can't remember how many other games do it, but it actually has branching story path and options.
Yeah, they do. I guess one thing I'm going to be really excited for is if they're going to keep that idea of branching potential endings,
Yeah.
which it's not, other than like saving certain characters, it's not universal to all the Resident Evil games. Like, of course, you could end up saving like Barry on the Jill playthrough of the RE1 remake, or when you're playing with Chris, you can save Jill and Rebecca and all these characters. But because of the movies and future games, right? Because of Revelations 2, we know for a fact that Barry makes it. So there is
Yeah.
a canon ending when you're playing with Jill. Because of the movies, we know for a fact that Rebecca makes it. So there is a canon ending with I'm about to say Leon. I meant to say Christopher.
What?
Christopher's ending. Chris.
Well, I hope
Chris
Leon
Hunter
survives,
off
man. He
that
still has
field.
to save the president's daughter, so that'd be a
Yeah.
big plot twist.
But the one thing that always frustrated me about Resident Evil 3 is that I think it's the only one that exists now, because it hasn't been remade, obviously, but it's the only one that still has an ambiguity to which ending is the right one, because the characters that you can or cannot affect don't actually ever show up again, right?
Yeah.
And of course, the major one is the survival or the death of that one guy who is the leader of the Umbrella Security Forces. What's his name? Nikolai. So there's an ending where he makes it out with the G sample in the helicopter, or there's an ending where you kind of like coax him into sticking around too long, and I think that Nemesis? I think Nemesis shoots down his helicopter, and you can see his corpse in like some corner somewhere later on. But
Well, the big thing too is Resident Evil 3 was always meant to be a spin-off and stuff like that. It was never meant to be a core game. But
yeah, actually,
under contract obligations, they were forced to make it into a full game. So a lot of the information that we don't have actually was released in Japan in manga and stuff like that.
yes, that's true. But it was actually, I think it was a Korean manga. Like it wasn't a Japanese one. It was like what is it called?
Manga.
Manhwa. Yeah, it was a
Manhwa.
manhwa, not a manga. Those are really cool, but I don't actually think they're canon.
It depends, man. Like one year they could be canon, one year they're not. It's just
Yeah, I think my favorite one that I ever saw of that was the one where they actually explained the source of Nemesis, like who Nemesis was as a person before he was tested on.
yeah.
And it was really cool. So we should find a link to that and definitely put it in this video for people to go check it out. I think it'd be really fun extra reading whether or not it's actually canon. So
A great manhwa. I'm sorry for pronouncing that wrong. Was actually, do you remember when you're in the warehouse and the guy you have to convince him to come out of the cargo container?
yeah, the guy from whatever firearms from the beginning of the game.
Yeah. You actually get to find out his story. Like he watched his family die, so that messed him up. Then he went to go hide, and then after you leave and stuff like that, he's like, "Well, I'm gonna be a man enough now and go out and try to save my already dead family for some." Like he's a broken guy, and it was pretty cool finding out what happened to him because he was just some minor character that just inconveniences you a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, I just had a crazy idea for some either like extra stories. They can do it as DSL, DLC. They can do it either as DLC or they can do it as just fun little Easter eggs in the game. What if they incorporated the characters and they had cameos from the Outbreak files in this Resident Evil 3 remake?
Ooh, that would be
Right?
interesting. Yeah.
Because the game has three major chapters, right? You've got the pre RE2, you've got the kind of like same time as RE2, and then the final one is after Jill gets infected and the destruction of Raccoon City, right?
Yep.
So during the pre and maybe even during RE2 chapters, you could have, like those survivors from the Outbreak files kind of like running into Jill. Jill helps them out with some stuff, and then they go their separate ways. Like, I think that would be a good way to maybe get people excited in the Outbreak file series again, and huge fingers crossed here, a remake of those games. Or maybe even a third Outbreak file. That'd be cool too.
Well, you have to remember, right now there's also in production Project Resistance. It's actually
Ooh,
a
I have
spin-off.
not heard of this.
It's a four-player co-op Resident Evil game that's developed corely by actual fans. We'll make that episode 2 probably, but yeah, there's live demos going on. There was a live demo going on during the Tokyo Game Show, and it actually looks really good. Like, it is modern graphics. It's actually scary, and you're not just some Resident Evil mercenary fighting guys with guns. It's actually survivors fighting zombies.
Now, my big question with that is it completely fan-made?
No, it's actually being endorsed by Capcom, so they've given them a budget to help it out.
Okay, that's awesome. Because I was gonna say, like, if Capcom is anything like Square Enix has been in the past, where you've got guys creating their own like mini versions of games or creating one of my favorite little bits of fantasy online was the Final Fighting Fantasy back in like the golden age of Flash animation and stuff on the internet. And they got hardcore shut down because they were using the licenses without, well, proper licensing. And this would have been this would have predated the creation of Square Enix's Dissidia series by probably like 3 or 4 years, and eventually just shut them down. So, like, do you think these guys will actually finish a product without Capcom getting cold feet and telling them to shut down?
I hope so, man. In all honesty, because the official trailer has finally been released, and I'm going to be sending you a link, and then I know it's going to be demonetized anyway, but I'm going to try to show a little bit of it on here, or at least some screen. Well, I guess I can show some screenshots and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I'd say just use screenshots if you want to supplement our audio recording here, and then just include links. They can't shut down your video if all you're doing is promoting their content, right?
oh, you'd
Okay,
be surprised, man.
let's actually get to that article that you were talking about, though, and then we can talk about the picture and all that stuff.
All right. So the article has the leaked images that you guys are seeing right now. It actually looks. Well, I'm very nervous because Nemesis. Look at his teeth, man. Like,
Yeah, its design looks a lot more kind of like in tow with what Capcom's been doing for its more modern Resident Evils since RE7. Like it looks more organic. It looks a little bit less anime in comparison to the original Nemesis. But I think I actually watched somebody talk about this release poster maybe like 2 or 3 days ago. And the one thing they were pointing out is the fact that for some reason, and I am 100% against this, for some reason in this rendition of Nemesis, and of course, like the game, we don't even know what percentage of it it's done. This is just a promotional poster. This might not even look like any of the characters at the end of the day.
yeah.
But why does Nemesis have a nose now? Did you notice that?
Yeah, it's like it's the stretched out, like elongated head and stuff like that. Like everything on him is grown.
Yeah. Well, like I mean, they just make him look a little bit bigger than he was, which makes sense because he's this like massive, like probably like 9 foot, 10 foot tall monster. But like, why? Originally, he looked more like a skull, right? He literally looked like skin kind of pulled over a skull. Um, but now he's got like some sort of nose that looks like it's like pushed down. I don't know. It's a really weird choice. Like, make him look more modern, sure, but why change his facial features?
I think the biggest one that I've noticed though, besides the teeth, is the eye.
Okay, what do you see with the eye?
Well, if you look at the original Resident Evil, the eye, his uh, right eye, is 100% stitched over. Like big ass, like big metal stitches and stuff like that. And in the remake, well, so far from what we've seen, you don't really see the stitches. It's more like it's kind of skin has grown over the eye.
You know what I think it is, and this would be kind of cool if they did some flashbacks for, like, if off of the manhwa, for example, if they did some flashbacks and they showed us how Nemesis was made.
Yeah.
Do you know what that actually could be is if he was in a training period, right, to kind of like make him more susceptible to commands from the Umbrella administration, he might have actually gone through some training fighting other BOWs. And that could be that all that skin that's over his right eye is actually a scar left from when he fought a licker or another tyrant, because it looks like giant claw marks.
I guess it kind of does, but I'm just there's just all these little small things, and I'm hoping Nemesis turns out because Nemesis, the first time I played Resident Evil 3, kind of scared me, man. Like he kept chasing you. Like every other monster during the game, you could close a door and you're safe. Nemesis was just like, ha ha ha, I'm going to break open this door.
Yeah. I don't know. To kind of disarm some people that are getting a little bit too hot and heavy about this new design of Nemesis. Again, guys, like we don't even know how far they are into production. I think this is all just to get people excited and get investors. So I don't think by any stretch of the imagination that this is going to be the final version of Nemesis. The one thing I can say I'm a little bit concerned for, if this in fact does end up being close-ish to what he looks like,
Yep.
is that you've got this new implement over his shoulder and kind of on his chest, and I've heard some people speculate that might be like a weak point when you're fighting him. It might be kind of like the exposed heart of the original tyrants, and this is like some sort of metal thing to cover up his weaknesses. But if you can pull up an original version of Nemesis, I don't care if it's high def or anything, the one thing that is most noticeable about his upper body is those tentacle things that come over his shoulders, right? And of course, people who have played the game know that those tentacles extend down to his hand, and that's what he uses to kill that one helicopter pilot at the beginning of the game,
Yeah.
right? So, if this weird apparatus thing is covering up those tentacles and he does still have them, then that's fine because that's part of his identity. But considering the fact that he doesn't have it on both sides and he's got that metal thing covering up his, I guess that would be his left shoulder, you don't see those tentacles anymore. So they might have actually taken that out of his design entirely.
Like they might have taken out the whole tentacles out of his like.
Yeah, I think they might have taken out all the tentacles from his design. So he might just end up doing like something more stereotypical, like just going up. Like, do you remember the Mr. X or whatever in the original game or in the remake or whatever?
Yeah, and he'd go
Um,
gut punch you and stuff like that.
Yeah, you haven't played the remake, and we still have to sit down and actually record a playthrough of that of Resident Evil 2. But do you remember the guy that supposedly Ada was dating, like that reporter guy that's in the prison in the basement of the Raccoon Police Department?
Yeah, and then he gets his like head crushed and stuff like that.
Yes. Okay, so
Yeah.
you did see the remake. So in the remake, he gets his head crushed by the Mr. X or whatever, and I think
Yeah.
that's when he's introduced in the game. In the original, of course, the original people who've played the first version of RE2 know that he was originally killed by one of the uh, like little spawns of the G Tyrant, right? Like it bursts out of his chest,
Yeah.
kind of like almost as an homage to Alien. Um, but I'm curious if they're going to do the same thing with that scene with the helicopter pilot from Stars. If they get rid of the tentacles, which I think is a really iconic CG scene or whatever in the original game, they might actually just have Nemesis go up to him and just like break his neck or something, which I think would be kind of lame, but whatever.
Well, that's the big thing that distinguished Nemesis in Resident Evil 3 from Mr. X and stuff like that from Resident Evil 2 is that Mr. X was limited by his still human-ish abilities. He had to be up close and personal.
Yeah.
Nemesis was kind of like Scorpion, where it's like he's across the map, but he's like, "Come here," and shoots a giant tentacle at you.
Pretty much. And actually, I just remembered this exact moment that another one of the huge plot points of Nemesis's tentacle is that when you're fighting him in like the second or third battle with him, he shoots Jill with his tentacle, which infects her with the virus, right?
Yep.
And that's why you play as Enrico later to find a cure in the hospital or what is it called? A vaccine, and then save her life.
They've changed a lot though, too, man. Not just a tentacle. Like before, remember Nemesis had to have those strict leather like armor to stop his mutations from getting out of control. Now he's wearing like caution, like rain hood and stuff like that. Like I don't understand like what it is. Like it's cool. It might make him like he's actually more of a test subject than a final product. But I'm really concerned because Nemesis was the scariest boss in Resident Evil, in my personal opinion. Like he wasn't
Yeah,
over the top. He chased you, and he wasn't confined to just these one segments where it's like lure this boss over here and then activate A and stuff like that. So
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the other two very, very important characters in this sneak peek kind of poster. I'm not going to say anything. I want to get your opinion on it first. What do you think of this updated version of Jill?
personally, I kind of like it. I do hope that the original is still kept though for like there's the original costumes you can unlock and everything because I actually think it makes more sense for her to be out of her tube top.
Well, actually, if you look closely, man, she's not wearing a tube top in this one.
I know
She's
that.
actually wearing like a tank top. It's got like shoulder straps, but she's got the gun holster over it.
But I will say she doesn't look as confident. So
I'm gonna say I actually really like that sleeve that she's got on her left arm. I like the fact that she looks like a special forces like member, right? She's got like
yeah,
a gun holster. She's not just carrying around a random pistol from her apartment. The one thing I'm gonna say though is that there's something weird, and this might just be a personal preference. This isn't me griping. This is just my opinion. There's something weird about the engine that they use from the Resident Evil 7 that they've used for the remake of 2 and they're going to use for the remake of 3. When they do female characters, they're like there's something I get like hardcore uncanny valley when I look at Jill's face here. She doesn't look like the original Jill, which we've seen in pretty much almost HD, right? Because they did the remake of 1 and she's shown up in Resident Evil 5 and all this stuff in Revelations.
yeah.
She doesn't look anything like her. Um, whereas like we haven't seen Enrico in like HD since or ever actually. We've never seen him in HD,
Yeah.
so we don't like this could be him. I actually really like his new haircut, but like that doesn't look like Jill. And they did the same thing with Claire in Resident Evil 2, and that's the only thing I really hated, other than Leon's super butt chin. Like Leon's never had a butt chin, but like they gave him like a butt chin, I guess, make him look more like country boyish. But this doesn't look like Jill to me. Like her outfit is great. I love the way she looks. I love the dirt and the injuries and all that stuff. But her face is like, who? This isn't Jill. Who is this?
I know, it's just Jill. When I think of Jill, I think strong, confident, deadly woman. Like, she's a seasoned fighter. This Jill looks kind of more like Leon from original Resi 2 and stuff like that, being like, "What's happening? Oh no!" Like,
Yeah. So I mean that's all I got to say about it.
yeah,
It's probably going to be a continuing thing if they keep using this engine for future Resident Evil games. If I see old characters in these new redesigns, I'm just going to be like, it looks a little weird, but I like what they do with the characters when it comes to the males. And of course, now we can talk about Enrico, and I think that he looks great. I think that he looks way more like an Umbrella-funded special forces like militant than he did in the original. In the original, he kind of looked like if you took like Antonio Banderas in like the early 2000s, like if you took Zorro
yeah,
from the live action movie and you made him in the modern day and he worked for Umbrella, that's who he was in that,
yeah.
right? So I'm wondering when they rewrite his character, new voice acting and all that stuff, if they're gonna make his character a little bit less of like a hey, I'm a lighthearted womanizer and more of like a hey, I'm gonna help you out because that's my job, but like I'm a hardened like war vet that works for Umbrella, you know? Like make him a little bit more serious.
Well, when you see him in this picture here, like, I know we're just basing everything off of pictures right now, which is very
Not even just pictures, Door. We're basing it off of a picture.
and promo pictures at that. It's just like, anyway, he looks confident and stuff like that. He looks focused. He looks deadly, unlike Jill. And I wish they did that to Jill because cause I like playing as confident characters in bad situations. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm just a wussy in real life, but it's just like I want to feel like the character I'm playing as actually can do stuff.
Cool. Okay, so I think that's enough for the image. Do you want to? Is there anything you read in this article that you thought was worth bringing up?
Um, the image was released by the sounds of it prematurely because it's not going to be revealed at any game awards or anytime this year. So nobody is sure why it's being released. And it's causing a lot of confusion between the fan base because if it's not coming out this year, it's not going to be shown off anytime soon. Why is it out?
Yeah.
Is it like Deadpool, where it's like they're kind of trying to gauge whether they should do this or maybe hold off on it for a little bit? I'm not too sure. It's a little confusing. Like even the article says there is no planned release dates. There's no planned knowledge. All we have is just these pictures. Capcom is being
Yeah.
tight-lipped, not saying a word.
Yeah, so unless it actually is a fumble on Capcom's part or on the RE3 dev team, I'm gonna stick with my guns and say that I think it is actually just meant to be like accidental promotion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like get people interested in it. Because if you remember, and the original kind of like release statement of hey, we're gonna remake Resident Evil 2 finally, it wasn't a mistake. It was very planned. They had like a little like 15, 20-second video getting everybody psyched. There was no content for it yet, of course. There's just the director of the dev team with a shirt that says like "We'll do it" or whatever, and then Resident Evil remake. Um, but that one was like way ahead of time. Like, do you remember when we first got that release statement? I think it was like 2013, 2014, like years ago. And then you didn't hear anything about it for like a year or 2 years, and then they started releasing some content, and then finally the game came out. But like it was just years in advance. I This one doesn't feel like that. This one feels like they already saw the success of Resident Evil 2. They already started working on it. They just want to make sure they've got the funding to finish the best possible version of the game.
Yeah. And I'm guessing there's going to probably be at least two versions of the game because you have the one picture there, Biohazard RE3 Z version. Like,
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna make a speculation on that. I think what that might be implying. That might be DLC, right? Which again, this is all ridiculous conjecture to even make at this point because we haven't seen any content for the game other than these two, three images.
Yep.
What that could be implying is their intention to make a version of the game. Could be DLC, could be part of the game you unlock after finishing both storylines or whatever. Um, where you can actually play as Nemesis through the storyline. And like maybe you've got like mini missions where you have to like destroy certain members of Stars or certain like members of the Raccoon Police Department, or maybe even put down like a scientist or something like the guy from the Outbreak Files, right? Or
Yep.
fight other BOWs. Who knows? It might just be like extra content.
All right. Well, I think that's good. I think we've hit all the topics, and I guess we'll never actually know because Capcom is being very, very quiet. Sony leaked it. Capcom is being hush. So,
Cool. Well, thanks for inviting me to this awesome convo, Door. I always have fun talking about games and movies with you.
oh, thank you. Glad to have you, man. Hope to have you in the future, but after I get all the bugs and kinks worked out. This is episode 1 after all. So, all right, man. I'll talk to you later. And for you guys, I hope you liked this conversation. If you have any more questions or want to know anything else, please comment down below. And we'll see you in the next stream.
Yeah, and smash that like button. Patreon. Yeah.
I don't have a Patreon, man.
Make one, and then I'll support you with 15 cents every 3 years.
Good, and they'll take 10 cents of that, so.